Welcome, precious hearts, to another exciting and thought-provoking journey on Enny's Diamond Stories, the place where ordinary human struggles are unwrapped into extraordinary lessons of life, love, and destiny. Last week, we stepped into the fiery world of the choleric temperament. We saw how cholerics are bold, decisive, and born leaders, yet how their fire, if left unchecked, can consume the very people they love. We discovered both the strength and the danger of choleric energy in marriage, parenting, and personal life. But today, the stage shifts. We are about to meet another fascinating temperament, one that dances into every room with laughter, draws strangers close with charm, and sprinkles sunshine wherever they go. The sanguine temperament is the temperament of cheer, charm, and charisma. These are the people who see the world as a stage, and every moment as an opportunity to dance, laugh, or create memories. From childhood, the sanguine child is the one teachers remember not always for their grades, but for their stories, jokes, and energy. In adulthood, they become entertainers, motivators, social butterflies, and sometimes dreamers who forget reality. The strength of the sanguine is their warmth. The danger of the sanguine is their weakness for distraction. Let's look at the story of Esther and John. Esther, a radiant sanguine woman, brought music into every part of John's life. Their wedding was like a festival, bursting with color, laughter, and endless joy. Esther danced before the guests long after the ceremony ended, twirling in her gown as though the night itself had bowed to her spirit. Her voice carried songs, her laughter echoed through the hall, and her very presence painted a picture of happiness. John, a serious and structured man, found her irresistible. She was the sunshine to his discipline, the laughter to his silence, the spark to his order. Esther loved surprises, candlelit dinners, and midnight conversations that drifted into dreams. To John, she was a breath of fresh air. But soon after marriage, cracks began to appear, headline fractures that widened with time. John's steady eyes noticed what Esther's laughter often concealed. Her joy came easily, but so did her forgetfulness. Bills were unpaid, phone calls were missed, and responsibilities slipped through her fingers like sand in the wind. Their children sometimes went late to school because Esther got caught up chatting with neighbors, or singing along with the radio while preparing breakfast. And the plans for their family business ideas Esther had filled pages with remained in her notebook of dreams written in bright colors, but never reaching the level of execution. John's patience stretched thin. His structured soul craved order, while Esther floated on the wings of spontaneity. He loved her warmth, but he couldn't ignore the consequences that followed in its wake. One evening, John returned from work exhausted, his tie loosened and briefcase heavy with reports. As he opened the door, he was greeted not by calm, but by a burst of voices. Esther sat in the living room, surrounded by friends, their laughter rolling like waves, music pulsing from the speakers, and food scattered across the table, as though it were a festival. To her, life was a celebration, and every day held reason enough to gather people and share joy. But there, on the dining table, amidst the plates and cups, lay an envelope, an overdue bill, bold red letters peeking through like a silent scream. John froze, his chest tightening. His eyes swept across the room until they locked with Esther's radiant smile. For a heartbeat, the air thickened. The music still played, but in John's ears it dulled to a hum. The joy in the room seemed to pause, hovering uncertainly. Behind Esther's sunshine, he saw a shadow, the danger of neglect, the cracks hidden beneath her laughter. In that moment, John's thoughts clashed. He loved this woman, her joy had rescued him from loneliness. Her laughter had taught him to see color in life again. But love alone could not pay bills. Joy could not carry responsibility. Her sunshine warmed him, yes, but left unchecked, it could also burn. Esther, sensing his silence, tried to brush it off with another smile, another laugh, another light-hearted joke. But John's gaze was steady, unyielding. The room, once filled with chatter, grew awkwardly quiet as the friends exchanged uncertain glances. The atmosphere shifted from celebration to tension, from warmth to unease. Their marriage stood at a crossroads that night. Could Esther's laughter be balanced with responsibility, or would her sunshine burn too hot, leaving scars neither of them could erase? The silence stretched until Esther's friends excused themselves, slipping out into the night one by one. The laughter that had filled the house was replaced by the echo of the closing door. John remained standing, his hand still gripping the briefcase handle, his voice low, but firm as he asked, "Esther, when will the party end? When will the dreams on paper become real? When will you see that a home cannot survive on laughter alone?" Esther's smile faltered. For the first time her sunshine dimmed. She wanted to answer, but words tangled in her throat. She remembered their wedding day, the vows they had exchanged, the promises she had whispered with tears in her eyes. She loved John deeply. She loved their children, their home, their future. But she also loved her freedom, her joy, her spontaneity, the very things that now stood like walls between them. Days turned into weeks, and tension lingered in the house like a shadow. John withdrew into silence, pouring himself into work, while Esther tried harder to brighten the atmosphere with laughter and activity. Yet, each time he looked at her, she felt the weight of unspoken words pressing against her heart. Their children sensed the distance too. One evening, their eldest daughter asked Mommy, "Why doesn't Daddy laugh with you anymore?" That simple question pierced Esther's heart, more than John's stern words ever could. It was that night, alone in their room, that Esther opened her notebook of dreams once more. But instead of doodling colorful ideas, she wrote a single line across the page: "If my sunshine is fading my home, then it must learn to rise with purpose." The next morning, Esther surprised John. She laid the unpaid bills on the table, her eyes steady, her tone quiet but determined. "Help me," she said. "Not to lose my joy, but to use it better. I don't want to be sunshine that blinds, I want to be light that guides." For the first time in months, John's stern face softened. He saw in her eyes not just laughter but sincerity, not just charm but commitment. Slowly, he reached across the table and held her hand. Their journey was not solved in a day. Esther struggled with discipline. John struggled with patience, and together they wrestled with the tension of joy and responsibility. But that moment became their turning point. Step by step, Esther learned to balance her spontaneity with structure. And John, though still serious, learned to laugh more and treasure the sunshine that first drew him in. Their marriage did not lose its music, it simply learned to keep the rhythm. Here is another real-life story. Samuel, a man born with the sanguine temperament, carried laughter like a second skin. In one of the cities in the southeast of Nigeria, his voice could be heard in marketplaces, offices, and even churches. He was the man people called when they needed encouragement, the neighbor who lifted everyone's spirits, the storyteller who could transform a dull moment into a festival of joy. From an early age, Samuel had a spark that was impossible to ignore. As an adult, his charm grew into charisma, and his charisma into influence. He started businesses with boldness, 10 of them in total, each with a flair of color, music, and excitement. His openings were always grand balloons floating into the air, speeches that moved people to tears, and promises that left investors inspired. People trusted him. Crowds loved him. But Samuel's gift was also his weakness. He loved beginnings more than follow-through. His businesses would burst into life with fireworks, but die quietly in the shadows of neglect. He enjoyed planning but disliked discipline. When responsibilities pressed too hard, Samuel would laugh it off, turning instead to a new idea, a new story, a new thrill. Employees left when salaries went unpaid. Investors grew cold when projects collapsed, and dreams slipped through his fingers as easily as they were spoken from his lips. At home, his wife, patient and quietly enduring, watched with both love and sorrow. She admired his joy, but she bore the weight of his neglect. She balanced unpaid bills, comforted children when promises were broken, and hid her tears behind a smile, so no one else would see. Samuel's children adored his storytelling, his jokes and his energy, but they also noticed the pattern he thought they could not see. One evening, his teenage son stood at the doorway, clutching a school project Samuel had promised to help with. His voice was quiet, almost trembling. "Dad, will you really be there for my graduation, or will you forget like last time?" Those words struck Samuel harder than any public failure ever could. He had faced disappointed investors, angry employees, and failed contracts, but nothing compared to the look in his son's eyes, the quiet ache of a child, uncertain of his father's presence. Samuel's smile, usually ready and effortless, faltered for the first time. He opened his mouth to reassure, but his son had already walked away. That night, Samuel returned home from a conference to a house that felt foreign. There was no rush of footsteps, no shouts of "Daddy's home." His wife sat quietly at the dining table, her hands folded in silence. His daughter remained in her room, the sound of muffled crying behind the door. For the first time, Samuel felt the sting of emptiness. The world outside celebrated him, but his own family seemed distant, withdrawn, almost unreachable. He sat alone in his leather chair, staring at the documents of his most recent failed venture. His mind replayed his son's question, his wife's silence, his daughter's tears. The charm that once lit up rooms could not erase the emptiness pressing against his chest. The sunshine he gave so freely to others had failed to warm his own home. But it was not too late. In the stillness of that evening, Samuel faced himself. He realized that joy without responsibility was only a shadow of true happiness. He rose from his chair, walked into his son's room, and sat beside him. For once, he did not speak in stories, jokes, or promises. He simply said, "I failed you, but I want to change. Will you help me?" His son's eyes, filled with uncertainty, softened just a little. His wife, overhearing from the doorway, stepped closer. And slowly, over weeks and months, Samuel began to rebuild. He shut down ventures he could not sustain and focused on one project, pouring his energy into finishing what he started. He wrote his commitments on calendars, not just in words, and allowed his family to hold him accountable. It was not an easy road. Many times, Samuel wanted to chase new dreams, to start fresh projects, to feel the thrill of beginning again. But each time, he remembered the tears of his daughter and the question of his son. He realized that real sunshine is not proven in moments of laughter, but in the steady warmth that lasts through seasons. His family slowly began to trust again. His wife, though cautious, began to smile with genuine relief. His children ran into his arms once more, not because of his charm, but because of his consistency. And Samuel learned a truth he had ignored for years. The world may cheer for a man's laughter, but his family thrives only on his presence. Let's look at the effects of the sanguine temperament in marriage, personal life, and in parenting. In marriage, when a sanguine steps into marriage, the home often becomes a place of excitement, romance, and laughter. Every day feels like an adventure, spontaneous dates, playful conversations, surprise gestures, and an atmosphere of joy that can make marriage sparkle. The sanguine has a natural way of keeping love fresh and full of fun, making the spouse feel special and adored. But hidden beneath that sunshine lies a shadow. If responsibility is neglected, bills left unpaid, promises unkept, and serious matters brushed aside, the marriage can slip into frustration. What begins as a season of joy may tilt toward instability, if one partner constantly carries the weight of responsibility, while the other hides behind endless laughter. For the sanguine, romance can flourish beautifully, but only if it is balanced with steady commitment. In personal life, outside of marriage, the sanguine personality is magnetic. They build friendships almost instantly. Strangers feel like long-lost friends after a single conversation. Their enthusiasm and humor make them the heartbeat of gatherings, and their ability to spread joy creates a sense of warmth wherever they go. People are naturally drawn to their energy, often describing them as the life of the party. Yet, this strength can also become a weakness. Friends may love their presence but grow weary of their unreliability. A sanguine may promise to show up but arrive late or forget entirely. Their conversations may dazzle with stories and laughter, but sometimes lack depth, leaving others feeling they only skim the surface. What makes them charming in the beginning can, over time, lead to disappointment if consistency is missing. In parenting, as parents, sanguines are often adored by their children. They play, joke, sing, and tell stories that turn ordinary days into unforgettable memories. Their homes echo with laughter, and their children grow up knowing fun was never in short supply. To a child, a sanguine parent feels like a best friend always ready to cheer, comfort, and create moments of joy. But children need more than fun, they need stability, guidance, and structure. And here lies the challenge. Sanguine parents may overlook discipline in favor of play, avoid hard conversations, or struggle to enforce boundaries. While their children cherish the joy they bring, they may also crave the security of consistent routines and firm guidance. Without balance, the very laughter that makes childhood bright may fail to prepare the child for the discipline and resilience needed in life. The effects of the sanguine temperament in marriage, personal life, and parenting are not just theories or abstract traits, they unfold in real stories that carry both sunshine and shadows. One such story paints the cost of forgetfulness in heartbreaking detail. Picture a sunny afternoon. A sanguine father, full of laughter and charm, leans down to his little girl and promises that today will be special. He will pick her up from school, and together they will stop for ice cream, the biggest cone she has ever seen. Her eyes sparkle with excitement, her tiny hands clap in joy, and her heart begins to count the hours. At the school gate she waits. The bell rings, children pour out, and one by one they are swept into the arms of mothers and fathers. The little girl stands on tiptoe, craning her neck, searching for her father's familiar face. Minutes stretch into half an hour. Her excitement slowly shifts to unease. Parents leave, the crowd thins, and her hope begins to tremble. An hour passes. The sun dips lower in the sky, and her ice cream dream melts into quiet dread. Finally, a kind teacher notices her waiting alone. With gentle concern, the teacher escorts her home, carrying not just her backpack, but also her unspoken disappointment. That night, under her blanket, the little girl curls into herself. Her tears soak her pillow, and though she whispers her father's name, she cannot make sense of the ache inside. She knows he loves her. She knows he didn't mean to hurt her, but his forgetfulness left a wound deeper than words. The sanguine father, meanwhile, sits at home, laughing with friends and telling stories, until the memory strikes him like lightning. His heart sinks. He rushes into his daughter's room, only to find her already asleep, clutching a teddy bear, as if it could take his place. The weight of his neglect crushes him because in his sunshine, he never noticed the shadow he cast. The truth is sobering. A sanguine's joy can lift hearts, but their forgetfulness can break them. Sunshine is beautiful, but when it fails to appear where it is most needed, it feels colder than the darkest night. The little girl grew into a young woman named Lydia. Outwardly, she was radiant, full of charm and laughter, just like her father. She lit up college halls, made friends effortlessly, and never let a room feel empty. But deep inside, a whisper followed her: "Don't depend too much on anyone. They may not show up." When friends failed her, she felt the same sting of abandonment. When relationships grew serious, she panicked at the thought of trusting too deeply. The laughter she shared so freely with others was sometimes a mask, hiding the unhealed wound of a promise once broken. Her father loved her deeply, and in many ways he tried to make up for his mistakes, buying gifts, planning spontaneous trips, and cheering her achievements. But Lydia never forgot that day at the school gate. That single memory stood like a locked door in her heart, shaping her view of love and trust. One rainy evening in her 20s, Lydia sat in a cafe with a close friend who listened quietly as she spoke about her fears of marriage and trust. Her friend gently asked, "Do you think this fear began with your father?" The question pierced her. For the first time, Lydia saw the thread linking her childhood pain to her adult struggles. Tears flowed not of anger, but of release. She realized that though her father was flawed, his love had always been real. His forgetfulness was not rejection but weakness. That night, Lydia returned home and sat with her father, now graying and slower in speech. She told him about the memory of the ice cream day, how deeply it had hurt her, and how it shaped her fears. He listened, tears in his eyes, regret flooding his heart. And for the first time, words he had long buried escaped his lips. "I am sorry." The wound began to heal not because her father became perfect, but because honesty and forgiveness bridged the gap between sunshine and shadow. Lydia learned that joy is powerful, but consistency gives it roots. A sanguine's love shines like the sun, but without responsibility, it can leave others thirsty for shade. Lessons to learn from the life of the sanguine. Joy must be balanced with responsibility. Fun is beautiful, laughter is healing, and joy is a gift, but when joy is not grounded in responsibility, it leaves cracks behind. A sanguine can fill a home with music, yet if bills are unpaid, meals forgotten, or duties neglected, the same joy turns to frustration. True happiness is not only in the laughter of the moment, but in the peace that comes from knowing important things are not left undone. Promises must be kept. To a sanguine, words often flow as freely as their laughter. They promise a surprise, an outing, a call, or a special treat with ease. But to the ones who hear those promises, those words are not casual, they are treasures carefully stored in the heart. When forgotten, they become heavy disappointments. Every promise kept strengthens trust, but every promise broken weakens love. Sanguines must learn that promises are not just words, they are bonds. Presence matters more than popularity. A sanguine can gather crowds, win the applause of strangers, and be the heartbeat of any event. But what is the value of cheering voices outside if silence and sadness fill the home? Families do not measure love by how many people laugh at your jokes, but by how often you sit with them, listen, and simply be there. Presence is love in its most powerful form, and for the sanguine, choosing family over the crowd is the mark of true greatness. Discipline is love. Creativity and spontaneity are gifts that make life colorful, but when unanchored, they drift into chaos. A sanguine parent may bring games, fun, and joy, but children also need boundaries, order, and structure. Discipline is not a cage, it is a safety net. It communicates love in a deeper language, showing care not only through laughter, but through guidance. When discipline meets joy, creativity flourishes without breaking what matters most. Listening is power. Sanguines often sparkle as entertainers, their words filling rooms, their stories captivating hearts. But relationships do not thrive only on laughter. They grow in the quiet moments when one person listens deeply to another. Talking entertains, but listening heals. When a sanguine learns to pause, hold back their words, and truly hear the heart of their spouse, child, or friend, they unlock intimacy that no amount of laughter could replace. The sanguine temperament is sunshine. Sunshine lights up lives, warms hearts, and nurtures growth. But sunshine can also burn if uncontrolled. If you are sanguine, remember, your laughter is a gift, but your consistency is your true power. If you are married to a sanguine, remember, behind the stories and smiles lies a heart that longs for stability as much as it loves fun. When the sanguine's joy is anchored in responsibility, marriages blossom, families thrive, and individuals achieve dreams without losing trust. Thank you for journeying with Enny's Diamond Stories today. If you saw yourself, your spouse, or someone you know in this story, take it as a reminder. Every temperament has beauty, but only when balanced with wisdom. This is just the second step in our journey. Next, we will uncover the deep waters of the melancholic temperament, gentle, thoughtful, yet heavy with silent struggles. Don't miss it. Subscribe, like, and share this story so others too can discover the diamonds hidden in everyday life. Till we come your way again, remember this: even the brightest sunshine can cast shadows if promises are forgotten. Like the little girl waiting for ice cream, hearts can ache quietly when laughter turns into distraction. If you are a sanguine, Let your joy light up the world, but pair it with responsibility, presence, and listening, so the love you give doesn't unintentionally leave scars. If you live with or love a sanguine, treasure their warmth, guide gently, and help balance their radiant energy with steady care. Marriage, family, and friendship are not built on charm alone. They are nurtured in consistency, patience, and honesty. Like Esther and John, or Lydia's journey, joy without responsibility risks heartbreak, while love anchored in awareness can shine brighter than ever. Thank you for joining Enny's Diamond Stories today. Subscribe, like, and share, and continue discovering the diamonds hidden in everyday life. Keep your laughter alive, your promises kept, and your love strong, because the right balance turns sunshine into something unforgettable. See you in the next video. Bye.